the Salty Hyena, and today we're mounting the new weapon Cyclone on 3 different MAO builds. The first one is the ultralight stealth MAO. This build was rather popular a couple of metagames back. It runs all light armor of the orange kind for maximum hit points, 2 accelerators in 1 sprint, and it's a stealth build. This build definitely has seen better days. The current meta, everyone runs radar. As you can see, I'm running 2 automations and 2 reinforced ammunitions on the Cyclones, and we're gonna check out some footage from this build. The primary advantage of this build is its extreme speed and agility. Nothing can really compare to it for the MAO. It sprints at an insane speed, but stealth day isn't nearly as good as it used to be. Back in the day, nothing ran radars. Stealth lights wasn't really a thing, and the MAO could really profit on it. In this footage, it is one of the first one I captured, and didn't really have the ranges automated in my brain yet. Anyway, in my opinion, this build isn't very strong. Back in the day when this build was popular, we used to run hammers on it. The short unload time synergizes very well with its speed, where you can use the speed to run out of range and dish out a lot of damage in a really short time. While the Cyclones, they have a rather long unload time, and each bullet doesn't really do a lot of damage. So you can't really stand and deliver. You have to kite your targets all the time. That obviously profits weapons that have short unload time and few bullets a lot more than what you can do with the Cyclone. I did have a lot of fun piloting this build, but it's extremely fragile. And since the Cyclones have a range of just 400 meters, means that you have to get really close to your targets. The current stealth MAO has a radar detection range of 325 meters for lights and mediums that doesn't run radar. So there's not a lot of wriggle room. And of course, there's plenty of builds that run 1 or 2 radars just so they can deal with stealth builds these days. And even though it has its speed and agility, I didn't really find that you could compensate for being so fragile, I mean. On to the next build. It's the 4040 Stealth MAO. It's an extremely good build. It's what I run with Sarissas these days. It's a really good hybrid mix of resistances, and it has a decent amount of speed for an MAO. It utilizes stealth, and I'm building the Cyclones the same way. 2 automations, 2 reinforced ammunitions. I have a single green automation because I'm flat broke. And I use the Pirate Javelin because it deals an enormous amount of damage. So on to the next clip. Even though I really like this build with Sarissas do a shit ton of damage, especially the Sarissas I use for it, which is for reinforced ammunition. But you will notice in this clip that I cycle fire a lot. I fire just 1 or 2 cyclones just to avoid getting caught out with an empty cyclone and thus being charged by a light or a ravager while I'm reloading. This build doesn't have a lot of speed unlike the ultralight one. The real question is, can it stand and deliver a lot of damage? And the short answer to that is no. Even while the cyclones do a decent amount of damage up close, the 4040 MAO can't really survive, let's say, brawling with a Ravager or a Mangler Nelly, and yeah, it is a medium build. It's not really a very good brawler, and the cyclones have a short range, as I mentioned earlier. It's not really a great brawling build. So even though this is my favorite build for Sarissa MAO, I couldn't really get it to work very well with cyclones. You have to try and keep your range all the time, and even though you're running stealth to force people to get into your range, yeah, I didn't really like it a lot. It's not a bad build per se, but there's so many other builds that are a lot more efficient at 2 points. If you're really into MAOs, just run Sarissas on it. That being said, it's been kind of a fun challenge trying to get this build to work. Also a bit of frustrating. It's important to keep in mind that the cyclones aren't really manglers. They have similar damage potential to hammers. Hammers, though, hit a lot harder with its short magazines, so it has a lot less exposure time. And that's the main difference. And as a lot of you guys know, the Hammer MAO isn't really great in the current meta game. So where does this leave this build? Yeah, it's decent enough. You can run it if you really want to, but there's absolutely no reason to buy 3 cyclones than to fit them on the MAO. There are probably better uses for it than on this build. You can synergize pretty well with other builds, but as you see, if you try to brawl, you die. On to the next build, the Ultra Heavy MAO. And this is the build that probably synergizes best with Sarissas. It has pretty good resistance for both kinds. You could also run 75% AP resist and 40% heat. Personally, it's so slow that I prefer to run it with 60% heat. Triple accelerators just to have a little bit of agility, and of course you need EM circuits on this build just to be able to survive when you inevitably get stunned by a light. And you will be stunned by a light because you are slow. Reinforced ammunitions on the Javelin. It's the same cyclones as before, but with weapon armor. Onto the clip. As you can see, this baby is slow. If you like speed, strictly speaking, this build isn't for you. Most things in this game is faster than this build. The upside is it has so much health. It's yeah, this is basically a walking tank. can take so much damage. You might even want to consider running it with double weapon armors. Sacrificing an automation, you can see its rate of fire is dramatically lower. You'll have to sacrifice reinforced ammunition if you want to go with double weapon armor. But this build can do what the other MAO builds couldn't. It can stand and deliver, and the extremely long exposure time of the Cyclones are somewhat mitigated by having an insane amount of hit points. That being said, if you're up against the new Atlas, you can't afford to get painted by its laser, because then all your advantages just crumbles. Another major disadvantage of this build is how slow it is. You will frequently find yourself walking somewhere and wondering about how the weather is and what you're gonna have for dinner tomorrow, and if your target's still gonna be there when you get to where you're going. And the answer is no, they will have moved or died a lot of the time. But if you are gonna run Cyclones on an MAO, this is the build it works on the best. Is it a great Titan? Is it a great build? I'm sorry guys, this isn't the new Manglin Nelly, and it's not a Ravager. At best, it's a decent build. If you like adrenaline and action, well, this isn't really for you. You're probably better off with the Torpedes. You do have a pretty good matchup against Lights though. And here you can see I'm starting to cycle fire my weapons in a little bit, just because I can't afford to get caught out without the magazine. Sorry about that. This means, of course, that you have an enormous battlefield presence, and you shouldn't really underestimate the psychological value of standing continuously firing machine guns on someone. But the Cyclones aren't Tormentors either, and the 400 meters range isn't great. Can you get this build to work? Well, yes, definitely. Can you be a valuable member of your team? Yes, indeed. Are there better robots that does the same thing that this do with regards to battlefield presence, etc.? Yes, it is. Just run a Turpitz, or you can run a 4040 Sarissa MAO, or you could just run one of the meta builds to be really fucking lethal. But as you can see, this Titan can definitely do some work. And we're nearing the end of this video. I have to say, I'm kind of liking the Cyclones. I actually kind of enjoyed this last build a bit, but it's a bit too slow for my tastes. Should you buy 3 Cyclones to fit them on your favorite MAO? Well, if you're rich, you definitely should do it. If you're not, there are better value for your money out there, like buying one of the new cool skins. I'm the Salty Hyena. I hope you learned something. Please like and subscribe. See you next time.